Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Valero.
And we are the FAIRtax guys. Now we're all rested up from our, being out on the road as we have been for the past little while.
But, and ready to do battle with the income tax.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
A battle that we are one day going to win.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, there are a lot of naysayers out there. You hear, I wish I had a dime for every time I've heard somebody say, oh, the FAIRtax is a great idea, but it's never going to pass.
It will.
And you hear stuff like that from Rush Limbaugh or Mark Levin. That's we really need to work on those guys.
Really
as well.
Annoying. Yeah.
So if the influence that they could wield on behalf of the FAIRtax would be wonderful if we could get them behind us. So if you're out there calling those shows and you're lucky enough to get in, put in a plug for the FAIRtax.
I want to remind people very quickly, a little housekeeping here. We have changed our publication schedule for FAIRtax Power Radio. Now, our main stream to Facebook FAIRtax official page, will remain at Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. But we also post it on YouTube. I stream it to Periscope. We do a podcast. Everything is going to be done on Tuesdays. The podcast, the stream to Facebook, the stream to Periscope, the stream or the posting to YouTube, everything is going to be done on Tuesday from now on. And
you're going to be busy on Tuesdays.
Yeah, yes, we will, because we usually do our recording sessions on Friday, and that gives me the weekend to get everything ready. So, but that does give me a little more time. And the chairman's report, the AFFT has been sending out an email that they call FAIRtax Friday. Sometimes they have a guest author, but Steve Hayes always has a chairman's report, and then there's a small report about FAIRtax Power Radio and a few other things. All right, since they have owned Friday, for a long time, we're going to stick with that. So the chairman's report, email, podcast, and YouTube will be posted and published on Fridays. Okay, so FAIRtax Power Radio Tuesday, chairman's report Friday.
I think I can remember that.
Yeah. And
we made the Grassroots Corner this time.
Yes, that's right. All right. Jim Bennett's Grassroots Corner of October 25th. All right. Florida keeps earning its rep as the hotbed of FAIRtax activity. The spotlight first goes to Riverside Art Market in Jacksonville. And who is in Jacksonville? None other than Paul Livingston. Okay.
Oh, yes.
This market takes place every Saturday at 10 a.m. to 3, rain or shine. FAIRtax District Director and Board Member Paul Livingston for Florida Districts 4 and 5 was there on September 21st and writes this. And Paul wrote a thank you note to some of the volunteers that helped him out. Red, Kathleen, and Dennis, thanks for all your help, time, and FAIRtax enthusiasm. We met our goal with 30 names because he has a sign-up sheet, and apparently they got 30 names with 26 of them providing emails. That's important because those people will be put in the national database, and they will be kept informed of the FAIRtax happenings, the chairman's report, that whatever goes out, and the other promos that they put out.
But they won't get any spam.
No, they will not get spam. Okay, the FAIRtax people, the Americans for Fair Taxation, Americans for Fair Taxation have never provided anybody in their database to other.
Marketers don't get that list.
Yeah, they don't get it. So you won't get spam when you sign up for it. So we encourage you to go to fairtax.org and sign up there. You will not get spam because you're supporting the FAIRtax. Jim Bennett also went on to talk about the people that made an appearance at the Trumpapalooza.
Yes.
Hey, what do you know? We just talked about that in the last episode.
Paul was at that one too.
All right. First, I want to thank Paul Livingston for all that this is actually my note to the board, wrapping up, letting the board know what happened. Paul Livingston, for all he did October 5th event, he was the first to arrive and one of the last to leave. And he had this, and I'll put some pictures up here. Paul set up a tent. He's made a habit of putting up a tent, awning, whatever you want to call it, even if it's an indoor event, because it gets attention. He is absolutely right. That area of his stood out in the whole room of all the vendors, So that was good. There were some nice pictures here. We had the FAIRtax guys took our picture with the Trump impersonator, and
his name is John C. Morgan, not to be confused with the Orlando and attorney, the attorney in Orlando.
Okay,
but, I got that backwards. But
yeah, and here's a nice picture of Paul doing the high five with one of the attendees. So yeah, it was a good event. We talked about it extensively in the last episode, so we're not going to cover too much, but that's the type of thing grassroots people do. So if you've got something that you want Paul to know about, something you're doing that you would like to get recognition, or if you want some help, okay, you can contact Jim at jim.bennett@fairtax.org. jim.bennett@fairtax.org. And that's this week's Grassroots Update.
yes, the whole idea is to encourage and inspire people. When somebody can see what's going on in another place and what results somebody else might be achieving, it is encouragement and inspiration to go there and do likewise. So we need as many grassroots supporters of the FAIRtax as we can get, and of course Jim's doing a great job highlighting them.
Yeah,
and
that's great.
We'd like to help that out.
All right, so this week's subject
oh yes is using the tax law for social engineering. Now, do you think the founding fathers really had it that way? You said you had the Constitution on your computer earlier. You took it down. You can't find anything.
Actually, I do have it here.
Oh, you got it back. You cannot
find. You want me to read it?
Yeah, not the whole thing. Speed read it and see if there's anything in there about using the tax code for social engineering. Because if you remember right, we're talking about the lady who thought the taxes in general were unconstitutional. It does give the federal government the power to collect taxes, just not an income tax.
Right. Right.
And so the Constitution would have no idea how to use an income tax code for social engineering, because they figured there's no income tax.
And the Constitution is not a lengthy document. No. All right, it's relatively short and to the point. And yes, there is nothing in there about social engineering, about using the tax code to change people's behavior the way you would like to change their behavior because you're so smart because you work in Washington. No, I don't think that's in the Constitution.
The problem is some people think that's a good idea.
Yeah, they do.
Anyway, that feeds right into what we normally do here on FAIRtax Power Radio, keeping an eye on the Congress critters and see what they're up to and what kind of changes to the tax code they're proposing. Last time we looked, there was 1,101. It's now up to 1,122. Mm-hmm. They have added 21
They had
new
some
ones.
Time off, so there was kind of a lull in the activity.
Yeah, they've added 20.
I did the math, too. As of the day we're recording this, I think it was 107 days. Congress is in session, and that comes out to just under 11. So they've dropped slightly, under 11 proposals per day to change the tax code. They're about 10.5 now. Yeah. Over 10 proposals per day they're in session to change the tax code.
Now, to be perfectly clear about what we're doing with these numbers, the 1,122 number is the number of hits you get back in the search engine on Congress.gov when you put in the string Internal Revenue Code, because obviously proposals to change the Internal Revenue Code will reference it. So you get back 1,122 hits if you look for the string Internal Revenue Code in legislation before the 116th Congress.
Yep.
And wouldn't you know, we're going to be talking about social engineering in the tax code, which goes away with the FAIRtax. The FAIRtax does nothing but collect revenue, does not mess with anything else. If they want to try to influence your behavior somewhere else, they can't do it with the tax code.
Yep.
We've got the FAIRtax. But the very first one, introduced yesterday, the day before we're recording this. This is H.R. 4689, and it says that proposal is to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to require that states give preference in allocating low-income housing credit dollar amounts to projects which are committed to providing non-smoking buildings. Now, non-smoking buildings are probably a good idea, because if your building is smoking, you're on fire. But
I don't think that's
I know what they mean. They mean buildings that you're not allowed to smoke in.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. I mean, that's bad for your health.
Yeah, but you know what? That's not the business of the United States Congress.
It's not the business of the tax code.
No, and it's not the business of the tax code to be telling people whether they should be smoking or not. Now, yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to smoke, but some people enjoy it.
Yeah, if you want to discourage that, there are other ways to do it rather than to put it in the tax code.
Yeah, you can put ads on TV like they actually do. Okay, but that has no place in the tax code. Why are these folks in Washington trying to alter our behavior? Because, like I've said before, once they cross the Beltway and they get inside the Washington, D.C. group, they become geniuses, and they know everything about all the ways that we should conduct our lives.
Indeed. This is S2595, a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to extend and update the new energy-efficient home credit.
Yeah.
Now, energy-efficient homes are good things.
Yes, that's a good idea. But
why?
People will do that on their own, you know?
Yeah.
For instance, you'll buy a car that meets your requirements. If you want a car that's extremely efficient, all right, you'll go find one that does that. You don't need Congress telling you. If you buy a house, if you want to make your house more energy efficient, which my wife and I have done with this house, changing the windows and a few things and so forth, you'll do it on your own. Why do we need Congress to try to steer us in that direction? It makes sense. It's going to happen. You know, so.
Well, here's one that just reeks of having a lobbyist behind it. Listen to this one. This is H.R. 4685 to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to classify certain automatic fire sprinkler system retrofits as 15-year property for the purpose of depreciation. Now, which certain fire sprinkler system manufacturer hired a lobbyist to put that in the tax code?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll figure that out. When that one came from Louisiana, Senator Bill Cassidy.
Yeah.
And wait a minute, that's the backwards. That's an HR one. I was looking at the other one above it. That's Representative Bill Pasquale of New Jersey that introduced the one about the fire sprinklers.
It's going on now, and it was going on 30 years ago, because we have an article here that my dear wife found. Tax Law as Social Engineer. This is from June of 1985, the Chicago Tribune by Louis Nizer. Okay.
And note the date on that, 1985, the year before they changed the tax code.
That's right. Yep.
We're now calling it the tax code of 1986, and the first sentence of this article tells you why.
Yeah.
That's your cue to read it.
Yeah. Oh, good. Thanks. I was waiting for a tax law from Congress to tell me to start this. Yeah. The tax code is under close analysis for the purpose of simplification. Yeah, 85. Reagan was the president. Reagan and the Congress were working on a complete overhaul of the Internal Revenue Code, and they accomplished that and signed it in 1986. So yeah.
So you had a flat tax in 1986.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Kind of
like that.
It was still an income tax, unfortunately. They didn't go the whole way, you know. Anyways, the effort can be meaningful only if we realize that the common conception that the sole purpose of taxes is to raise money for the government is a fallacy. Well, that's what it should be. It should be the sole purpose is only for raising money. Unfortunately, we know that's not the way it is. What is insufficiently understood is that we have diverted the original purpose of the taxes by using tax deductions as incentives to achieve economic objectives. All right, tax deductions have become devices for social engineering, and that's what this article is about.
And ways to get lobbyists rich.
Yeah, right, and some Congress critters too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Let us examine some of these incentives. Do we wish to encourage companies to retool so that they can better compete with foreign competitors? Then we enact the investment tax credit. Yep.
I've got a better idea. Why don't we enact the FAIRtax so that the American products on the world market no longer contain the embedded costs of the income tax system, and that will make them more competitive on the world market better than any other kind of investment tax credit could ever dream of doing.
Well, that's a radical idea, Bob.
Well, I'm a radical.
Yeah.
At least today, I guess.
Remember, that's what Steve said in last week's episode, is ideas that used to be considered normal are now considered considered radical.
Okay.
So,
Well, I still think if we want to make American goods more competitive, you just get rid of the embedded cost of the income tax system. Because in Europe, where they have that VAT tax, products that are produced for export, the manufacturers of those products get a refund of the VAT tax that is added to the cost of everything as it goes through the production line. They get that back. So the foreign-made goods do not have that component in their prices, and they're cheaper than American goods because, again, their prices don't contain the embedded costs of their tax system, and ours do. So that we're at an unfair competitive position.
We don't want a VAT tax here in the United States.
Absolutely not.
No.
I want the fair tax.
Okay, do we wish to encourage construction of buildings? Then we pass an accelerated depreciation law, which assumes that the building is declining in value when in fact it may be increasing in value. And that's what usually happens. Real estate usually appreciates, not depreciates. Thus, real estate becomes the most popular shelter. So that's another thing. And this is the case. My wife and I found this out when we had that rental property in northern New York. We were allowed to depreciate the property, but I can tell you that when we sold the property, we sold it for a lot more than what we paid for it.
That's the same thing with my mother's timeshare and a beach house in South Carolina. Did the same thing.
Yeah, so anyways, why don't you take the next one, because I've got a catch in my throat.
Okay, I'll skip down to this one. Do you wish to encourage charitable contributions? Now, why do people make charitable contributions? Usually because you believe in the cause of the organization to which you are making your contribution. Yeah. Be it your local church, be it the Red Cross, be it a veterans organization, anything there. Oh, do you want to encourage that? Then let's provide in the tax law that such contribution is made by cash or check. The contribution is tax deductible provided it does not exceed 30% of the adjusted gross income. Now, is
that clear?
Yeah, absolutely. We have talked about this before, and studies have been done on it that show that now, especially with the standard deduction doubled,
that's right,
you would have to give a ton to charity before you even have enough deduction over and above what the new standard deduction is. So most people of normal means are not giving to charitable organizations because they get a tax deduction for it, because they're now taking the standard deduction.
Yeah.
And when you've got more money in your pocket, like when they don't take withholding out of your paycheck, when they don't take the payroll taxes out of your paycheck, when you get a prebate every month, when you've got more money in your pocket, guess what? Charitable contributions go up. That has been proven time and time again.
That's
so
right.
You don't need to try to social engineer more contributions to charitable organizations by making a tax deduction for it. It doesn't work.
And from what I understand, charitable contributions to were one of the first items of deduction, because remember, the income tax started in 1903.
No, 1913.
What?
Income tax in 1913.
1913, I apologize. Yeah, 1913. All right. And then 30 years later, we started withholding. But then also during World War II, Congress raised the top marginal rates up to around 90%. And so the people who were getting taxed at 90%, they weren't doing much in the way of charitable contributions. So Congress said, okay, I'll tell you what, we'll keep it at 90%, but we'll let them deduct for their deductions or for their contributions.
Yes.
And that's where it started, and it has never ended. I mean, they have deductions, credits, exemptions for all kinds of things, all right? And it's not necessary. If Congress would just, get out of the way and let the American consumer do what they do best, and that is generate business and thereby pay taxes, we'd all be a lot better off.
Yes.
Okay. What's another good one?
Can I skip down to this one? It says, do we wish to encourage long-term investments of at least 6 months? Then what you do is you pass a capital gains tax which permits 60% of the income from such investments to be untaxed. I got a better idea.
Yeah.
Why don't we allow 100% of the income from such investments to go untaxed, which is exactly what the FAIRtax does.
I think that's a dandy idea.
The FAIRtax taxes you when you spend it, not when you make it. So yeah, if you want to invest in the economy, you want to buy stocks, which helps the economy, which helps the businesses whose stock you are buying, and if you want to encourage that, and they say, all right, we'll let 60% of that be free from taxes. Well, that's only about 60% of the job.
Yeah.
Because you FAIRtax can make that 100% of the income you get from any source, whether it's investment income, whether you earn a paycheck, whether you are, in speculating in commodities or stuff like that, whether you win the lottery, does not matter where you get your income. The FAIRtax does not tax you a dime until you spend it, and it doesn't tax you a dime out of your own pocket until your spending exceeds the poverty level for your household size. That's what the prebate does. It gives you back the taxes collected from you on that level of spending. So you don't take anything out of your pocket until your spending rises above the poverty level. You feed your family before you feed the government with a FAIRtax.
And savings and investment is important for an economy. All right, having people, saving for a rainy day or investing in a business or another type of instrument is very important, because then the banks have cash on hand that they can lend to new businesses that want to start up and so forth, and create more jobs and so forth. So that's very important, to savings investment. So why don't we get the federal government totally out of the business of taxing or giving loopholes to taxing investments and savings and so forth? Let the American consumer take care of their own savings and investment, and just have a simple tax system that taxes the final consumer when they pay for a new product or service, and that's the end of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, this one's kind of similar. Do we wish to encourage the risky investments to find oil or gas? Well, then you pass a 22% depletion allowance to reduce the taxable income. Again, how about making taxable income? There's no such thing as taxable income with a FAIRtax.
And reducing the compliance costs of these companies, because they have huge compliance costs right now, and getting rid of most of that compliance cost so they can go about doing business, increasing their business and hopefully hiring more people and so forth. So, I don't think this tax law as social engineer is such a good idea.
Well, I tell you, apparently the author of this article thinks it is. If you go and read at the very last paragraph at the bottom of it, says, those who are vested with the authority to simplify the tax code should not merely be accountants or economists. They must be social philosophers, evaluating the objectives and recognizing that the tax code is no longer merely a device for raising money, but an instrumentality for a sounder economic social system.
Yeah. They're bought into it. They're hooked.
Yeah, well, I can't say what I'm thinking about this guy right now on a family-friendly
it's a family
program.
show. Let's
other than he's just wrong, guys. I'm sorry.
My wife found this other one that I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I think I will. The Internal Revenue Code: a burden for taxpayers or an instrument for social change. It is a thesis by Heather Murray, and it's only a couple of years old. April of 2017. She was in the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga Accounting group, and this is her departmental honors thesis. And what I can tell you, I just read through the final analysis, because her whole thesis is 39 pages, and no, we're not going to read that here.
No,
we don't have enough time.
You'll have to wake me up from my nap if you do that.
So, but she is, again, she, like the other author, is totally invested in the idea of using the tax code for social engineering. It should be simpler than that. We should use the tax code to raise revenue, period. That's all, okay? That's what we need to do. Stop messing around with what you think Americans should be doing, what you think their priorities should be. We don't need your meddling. Let's keep it nice here.
I thought you were going to go to an old George Jones song. Don't need your rocking chair.
We don't need your meddling in helping us decide what is the best way to conduct our lives.
But what's so funny is that the FAIRtax does a better job of what these social engineers trying to use the income tax code are trying to get. I mean, again, if you want to encourage investment, untax it completely, not just by 60%.
Yeah, that's right. And if you think Americans should be using a different type of light bulb, it will come along, you know. I mean, you know, we've gone to compact fluorescent, now we got LEDs, and frankly, I think LED light bulbs are far superior to the incandescent bulb.
Yeah, well,
and now that they're getting less expensive and they use a lot less electricity, of course it makes sense to go buy that type. I don't need Congress telling me what type of light bulb. I can figure that out for myself.
Yeah,
so.
Well, the problem is, as long as the tax law is being used for social engineering, that just is a target-rich environment for lobbyists to come in and try to, you know, buy things and, you know, help their industry get ahead.
Yeah.
And, you know, when the tax code is picking winners and losers, that's something the free market ought to do.
Yeah.
It really should. And the free market does a much better job than the government at just about everything it tries. You got to hit on that real quick.
Yeah.
I did not see this. Did you send it to me?
This is an article that I think I saw this online too, but one of our nearby FAIRtax supporters sent this. Thank you, Fred. You know, from Williston. Okay. An IRS employee stole identities and went on a 2-year spending spree. An IRS employee stole multiple people's identities and used them to open illicit credit cards, to fund vacations, and shop for shoes and other goods, according to a complaint unsealed last week in federal court. The person was only 35 years old, and
guess what?
I'm not. You know, I hope not that I want to be, you know, vindictive on this person, but if you do that, you need to pay the consequences. It's not a good thing to do. Yeah. It's illegal.
Go to jail. Go directly to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
Yeah. The complaint accuses a 35-year-old federal worker of racking up almost $70,000 in charges in the course of 2 years, illegally using the true names, addresses, dates of birth, and social security number of at least 3 people. All right, I'm not going to go on. You can imagine this.
So you get that information off of somebody's tax return. Now, what happens if we have a system with no tax returns? That can't happen.
Yeah, that's right. So just think of all the IRS employees who will be saving from themselves because they can't avoid the temptation of doing. Because, you know, we've also heard of IRS employees who are delinquent in their income taxes.
And ones that get rehired after being let go for misconduct. I mean, we won't go into there. IRS needs to be out of business, really. And the only way to put it out of business is to get rid of the income tax. The only way to get rid of the income tax is to pass the FAIRtax. And we got just a few minutes left for your logo store thing.
Yep. Remember, the FAIRtax is the answer. A simple consumption tax. Get rid of the income tax. Get rid of the IRS. Okay, we've got a number of items here. You know, you can buy these campaign buttons for the FAIRtax at the FAIRtax logo store. FAIRtaxlogostore.org. FAIRtaxlogostore.org.
How many of those things does Randy Fisher have? He collects political buttons.
Yeah. Hopefully he's got a few of these. All right.
I hope so.
These are great. You really need to get some of these and have them with you when you go to a town hall meeting. Okay, shirts, hats, travel mugs, palm cards. You know, they have basic information about the FAIRtax, and you can buy a group of them like this. All right.
Oh, Miss Producer just handed us.
Yes, I'm glad she remembered this. We have new yard signs. Aren't these beautiful? All right. New yard signs. I mean, this is a brand new item. This is the first time we've mentioned it on FAIRtax Power Radio.
Yes.
Okay. I think I'll put a cutaway so
you can get the little wire. You can get the little wire frames on these things and stick them out in your yard.
Free shipping all the time. All right. So you can order some of those and have them on your property. Put them by your business, whatever. Okay. Anyways. Oh yeah. And the FAIRtax
prebate cards.
Prebate cards. Business card size. Basic information about the FAIRtax on one side, prebate schedule on the back side. There's all kinds of stuff. Please demonstrate your support for the FAIRtax by wearing or displaying some of the events. We do not make a profit, believe me. I told the group, consider this an advertising cost, all right? Just like any business spending advertising, you have to advertise what you're doing, and that's what the FAIRtax logo store does. It is not a profit-making venture because we just couldn't charge, what it would require to make a profit, and you get free shipping.
Indeed.
So,
I'll take that. And we haven't mentioned in the past couple episodes of FAIRtax Power Radio our email address, thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. If you've got a question or a comment, you can leave us a question or a comment on our Facebook page, and we have gotten some good feedback in both of those places, and have mentioned some of the stuff here on the FAIRtax Power Radio.
And you can see the archive of our past shows at FAIRtaxGuys.com. FAIRtaxGuys.com.
All right, check it out. Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio. Thank you so much for watching and or listening, whichever the case may be. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
We're the FAIRtax Guys, again reminding you that the FAIRtax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
The FAIRtax is a tax replacement plan where we take all the federal income taxes, including corporate, personal, gift, and estate taxes, and replace them with one national consumption tax on new purchases, above the poverty level only. This form of consumption tax comes with no exceptions and is progressive, not regressive. The poor are not paying more, and the rich are not paying less. What makes it progressive is that all Americans are untaxed up to the poverty level via the prebate, much like your standard tax deduction. The taxes are collected by retail businesses at state level, so the system is more accountable. The IRS is done away with, and you have control over your money and what the overall tax rate your household pays. The FAIRtax is revenue neutral, so the government receives the same amount of money as they do now, and it's fair because you decide what's fair, not them. To learn more, visit fairtax.org and be sure to like us on social media to help educate your friends and spread the word.